Hi, you're watching Hindustan Times. I'm Aditi Prasad, and with me is the editor-in-chief of the paper, Sukumar Ranganathan. And today on the agenda is the very important topic of India's vaccination drive. We are supposed to be reaching 1 billion jabs, maybe as early as next week. And, we've come a long way, Sukumar, from where we were. Just a few months ago, second wave at its peak, vaccination drive not really going there, and then suddenly we seem to have made a turnaround. On a day we even did 25 million jabs, and all of that. What changed, and do you believe that we're doing enough now?
Okay, there's a simple answer as to what changed. Supplies improved. For a long time, supplies were patchy, and we have to accept that. We also have to accept the fact that India was fairly late in placing orders. We sort of assumed that whatever was made in India, we would have first dibs on it, and there's no harm in making that assumption. But we were very slow to order the vaccines. And then we ordered, the production started. One of the two vaccines approved in India is Covaxin, which is made by Bharat Biotech. They had all kinds of production issues. A good vaccine on the basis of data that the company has released in terms of efficacy and everything else, but they had huge production issues. If you remember, through April and May and June, we all kept getting regular releases from the government saying production capacity being increased by Bharat Biotech, 700 million doses a year, 50 million doses this month, all those kind of things, and didn't happen for a long time, and finally kicked in around September, October. And let's not forget the fact that even Serum Institute, which makes the Indian variant of the AstraZeneca vaccine called COVISHIELD in India, was producing just around 100 million doses in June, right? I mean, soon after the second wave. And now, how much are they producing? They're producing around 200 million doses. So clearly there has been a ramp up. What is the current capacity? I don't have numbers for capacity because the companies don't really release these numbers, but we have numbers of how much the government expects, the number of doses of vaccines the government expects to be available in October. That's around 200 million doses of the COVISHIELD vaccine made by Serum Institute, around 60 million doses of the vaccine made by Bharat Biotech, and another 6 million doses of the vaccine made by Zydus, which is still not been incorporated into the national vaccine drive. And I think the Serum Institute number could go up to as high as 220 this month. So, you have a lot of vaccines available. So you have almost 280 million doses available. I'm leaving out the Zydus vaccine. And 280 million doses spread across 30 days.
Right.
It's a little over 9 million doses a day, which is a really healthy number of average vaccinations to do. The actual number is a little lower, and we should talk about it. But I think we are in a good place now. The number of cases has come down. It's been below 20,000 for almost a week or 10 days, I would think. So it's a good place to be in. Number of cases has come down. Number of deaths has come down. You've vaccinated a significant proportion of the population, and you're nearing a good milestone. You're nearing 1 billion doses of vaccines having been delivered.
Right. You said the supply is sorted now. So, yes, the supply is sorted. But what about the demand? And I'm talking about vaccine hesitancy here, which is still a reality in many parts of India, number one. And number two, the actual ability of the government to go out and, have that many points to sort of deliver the vaccine, deliver the jabs to people. Where are we vis-a-vis that?
Good question. Great question, in fact. It's not going to be 100%, right? And what is it likely to be? No country in the world has achieved 100% coverage with vaccines. Typically, one would expect the plateau to, or the ceiling, not even a plateau, the ceiling to be hit around 75% or 80%, which means 75% of your population is vaccinated. It's highly likely that the remaining 25% do not want vaccines for whatever reasons. It could be religious reasons, could be fear of the needle, could be something else, but for whatever reason, they're not going to want vaccines. And where are we vis-a-vis that, right? I mean, we'll obviously come to what the government should be doing in a bit, but first let's look at where are we in comparison to that. Let's assume 75, 80%. 75% is a good ceiling to have. We are at 73.6% of the population having received at least one shot of the vaccine, right? So, little more and you're going to reach the peak. No one else is going to want to have first shots anymore. Clearly evident in what is happening right now. We've been giving 2 second doses for every first dose for I think the past week, because the number of people wanting first doses has gone down.
Right.
The number of registrations has slowed to a trickle. These are people coming and saying we want first doses. So clearly you're seeing that trend happening. You're going to hit the ceiling. Could be 75%, could be 77%. Highly unlikely that it's going to go above 80%, even in India's case. So that's one part. So how does this split up? We've entirely vaccinated 280 million people, almost 280 million people. That's around 30% of India's adult population. Remember that at this point in time, only adults get the vaccine. People aged 18 and over get the vaccine.
Right.
Below that, the government has still not approved vaccinations, although there are 2 vaccines that have been, one has been approved by the drugs regulator, the other one has been recommended for approval by the subject expert committee of the drugs regulator, which means the approval is largely a formality. One of these is for children young people between the ages of 12 and 18. The other one is for young people between the ages of 2 and 18. So those will be introduced, and I'm told that by November that process will start. But right now we are only vaccinating people over the age of 18. 940 million Indians are in that age group of 18 and above. We've fully vaccinated 280 million of them. Another 414 million of them have been partly vaccinated. So we are hitting the ceiling. What can the government do to take the number up from 75 to 77 to 80? I think over 80 is going to be very difficult. I'd be delighted if we manage to take it up over that. The first one is, I know this may sound merciless. I mean, it may sound unkind, especially for people who've had a bad time with COVID. But I think you need to start linking vaccinations to benefits, right? You can, of course, also offer incentives, right? You can offer extra ration for people
Right.
who
not beer. Which some countries did.
Yeah,
So,
some countries
anyway,
did beer.
yeah.
I think in Washington, was it in Washington where it's legal? I think it was in Washington where they offered people a joint, right? I mean, you could take a toke,
Yes.
but listen, all those are fine. I mean, some US states were offering people $25, some were offering people $50. So I'm just saying that if local governments and local administrations decide, okay, we're going to give 2 kg more of oil. And why do I pick oil? Because edible oil inflation has been high. This is the festive season. Everyone's consumption of oil and sugar goes up. Not healthy, but it goes up. But give them 2 kgs of sugar, 2 kgs of oil. So that's incentives. You can link it to attendance in government employees who have not taken it. We should tell them that you can't come into work. Can the private sector do it? I think they should. I'm not, and see, I think it will also stand legal scrutiny, because someone who's not vaccinated is not just a danger to themselves. They're also a danger to everyone else.
Right.
So I think from the public safety perspective, you can mandate that. Great, HT. Everyone wants to come back to work in this nice looking newsroom. We'd love to have you come back, but are you vaccinated? If you're not, can't come back. The COVIN app, the API is now being shared. The employers can use it to check vaccination status and all that. I think that's good. Travel, bus travel, train travel, flights. You can put restrictions. Entry into malls, entry into restaurants, you can have restrictions. So I think you can do a lot of these things to push people, to incentivize them, or in some cases put in place restrictions for people who are not vaccinated to try and get the number up. but highly unlikely that it would go above 80%. I would, of course, be delighted to be proven wrong in this case. I mean, if we touch 85% or something, I think it would be a world record.
Right. Our Health Minister Mansukh Mandviya has reportedly also said yesterday that the day we achieve the 1 billion jabs, there'll be, I mean, they're making big programs. They're going to announce it at, they're going to be mega announcements
No, it is
and to encourage people
no,
at
definitely a reason for celebration.
Yes, absolutely.
No country in the world has given, other than China, has given more than 1 billion jabs, right? I mean, and to give 1 billion jabs across the length and breadth of this country is no insignificant achievement. It's no mean achievement. I think it's something about which this country can be proud, and provided now, of course, there are things that they should do now, right? Because there are targets that they should do, and we should talk about those.
Targets that they should do, because 1 billion jabs will be done, but the next big thing which everybody is really talking about are the booster doses, because we can't be sitting on past laurels again, because apparently we will all need booster doses in the next 1 year.
I'm not so sure, right? I mean, the science on that is still not very clear, but let's come to booster doses in a bit. I think there are 3 things that we need to consider now, or we need to debate, which are the big issues. The first one is really, we have vaccinated a certain number of people. We need to cover a few more people, right?
Absolutely.
So 278 million Indians, 280 million Indians have been fully vaccinated. There are 414 who have been partly vaccinated. We need to first make sure that those 414 million people are fully vaccinated. These are people who have taken 1 shot. There is no hesitancy in taking a second shot. Sure, there might be a few dropouts like they usually are, but in many cases, these are people who are keen to get the first shot. Now they will be keen to get the second shot. So the first question the government should consider, because almost 90% of them have got COVISHIELD, which has got a 12-week gap. So the first question the government should consider is, should we reduce that gap? Can we take it down to 6 weeks? Can we take it down to 4 weeks? Because if you do, you have the supplies, you can just ramp up your vaccination and you can vaccinate these 414 million people over the next 2 months, so that by the end of the year, you've met the target that you wanted to meet right at the beginning, which is vaccinate all adults by the end of the year. So that's the first thing that the government should consider. The second thing, vaccination of young people, right? Now, here's what science says. According to science, young people not particularly vulnerable to COVID. According to science and data, number of deaths of young people on account of COVID, very, very, very low. Low enough to be almost insignificant, right? So that is something to be remembered. But parents are obviously nervous, right? I'm the father of a 19-year-old young man, right? And not a child anymore, but suppose he'd been younger, would I have been comfortable sending him to school? I'm not so sure. Despite all of us knowing that it's relatively safe, right? So the science says it's relatively safe, which is what we've been saying, that we've been pitching very heavily for resumption of physical schooling. But one of the big hurdles to the resumption of physical schooling is parents, who are justifiably worried about their children contracting COVID. So you can actually boost the prospect of physical schools by vaccinating children, right? I mean, parents will feel a lot more comfortable and confident that, great, we can send our children to school now. So I think we need to start vaccinating young people. You've got 2 vaccines that they can get, which is the Zydus Cadila Zycov and Covaxin. There are others. COVISHIELD also, I think, is being tried out on, there's a test going on for young people, but those results are not out. But the minute you do that, so now you've got a certain capacity of Covaxin, 60 million doses a month. Should you reserve the whole thing for young people? Now that the subject expert committee has said that this vaccine can be given to young people, perhaps you should, right? So you need to, and what about Zycov-D? Should you reserve 6 million is what I think they're right now. This month they're going to do 6. So let's assume they do 6 or 5 every month. Should you reserve that also for young people? I think you should. Right? I think there are around 400 million people in that age group. You have to
Enough COVISHIELD
you
there
have to cover them between Covaxin and Zycov right now. I'm hoping that Covishield will also get approved for young people very soon. But again, it's a process that's going to take some time, right? 3 months, 4 months, that will probably spill over into early 2022. So that's the second thing that they should consider. The third thing we should consider is booster shots. But that's, I think in terms of priority, these two would be, the first one is adults, get done with them first. The second one is children, get done with them after that. The third one is booster. Science is still not clear that we need boosters. What we do know is that if someone has had a prior infection, they do not need boosters. Right? Science is very clear on that. In fact, science is even clear enough to say if someone has had a prior infection and has had one shot, even that is adequate. But here they are fully vaccinated. There are a lot of fully vaccinated people who have had COVID, like me. Between first and second dose, I had COVID. So people like me definitely do not need the booster. So you leave out the millions of those people. Please remember this. For every recorded case in India, there are 10 or 15 unrecorded cases. It's why the seroprevalence or the presence of antibodies is so high in the population. In some cities, it's as high as, in some cities and states, it's as high as 60% and 70%. So you will have to weigh the necessity for boosters against this. The people who will really need boosters are those who are extremely vulnerable, people who have had organ transplants, people who have had significant comorbidities. And then, of course, people who are very old. But again, you will have to look at who needs it. The majority of the population will likely not need boosters on the basis of current science. I will, of course, change my mind, and I reserve my right to change my mind 2 months from now if there's new research that says, no, everyone needs a booster. But on the basis of current science and data, I think the only people who need boosters are going to be that limited population. But otherwise, most of us will not.
All right, I think that's very succinctly summed up by you, taking science and common sense. And I hope the people in the corridors of power are listening to what you're saying here, because those are some very interesting tips that you gave that the government of India can utilize very favorably going forward in their vaccination drive. Thank you, viewers, for watching this broadcast. Thank you, Sukumar, for your time. We'll keep coming back to you with more. Stay tuned to Hindustan Times.